Hello, hello. I'm going to give folks a minute to join here. I am excited to be with you today. We're going to be talking about having too many projects, not having enough progress, and how to stop overcommitting. So I'm just gonna let this populate, have a sip of my coffee, say hi in the chat if you're joining me. Let me pull the chat up. I think I can see it now. I hope everyone is doing well today. Hello. I see one person has joined. All right. We are almost at 1 minute after. We're going to get going in just a couple seconds here. One more sip of coffee for me. I had an unexpected errand this morning, so I'm just regrouping my morning. Let me know if you know how that feels, and it relates to our topic of having too many projects and not enough progress. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling overworked, if you and your team, this goes for your team too, are feeling like you're not making the progress that you could be, today is for you. So, and I see this with so many organizations. Yes, many organizations are under-resourced and understaffed. But in addition to that, a lot of organizations and leaders they are overloading their plates. And while it's nice to give the advice to you just have to say no to more things, that's kind of easier said than done, right? So today I want to kind of dive into exactly why overcommitting actually slows you down. So saying, yes, I'm just going to push harder, I'm going to get all these things done, actually causes you to do less, how it actually drains your resources, and ultimately leaves your important work unfinished and keeps you in this kind of vicious cycle of having even fewer resources, even less money, and then being even more strapped for time. Okay. So here's the thing. When we take on multiple projects, when we have a to-do list of all sorts of different kinds of things related to different projects, we end up burned out and our progress is stalled. And there's a couple of reasons why. One is context switching. You can absolutely Google that, but basically it's a simple concept that when I'm doing one thing and then I have to switch gears to do something else, it takes our brains and our body some time to shift from one activity to another. So for example, I had an unexpected errand with my son this morning. But the process of coming home from that, getting out of the car, I couldn't just jump instantly on my computer. I needed a moment to regroup. I got myself a cup of coffee, right? I had to kind of orient myself. What am I doing now, right? So switching from one thing to another. That could have been from a meeting with my team to this live broadcast, or a run to the bank, and then working on copywriting, right? So switching things, or it could be as simple as checking my email to having a conversation with a client or a colleague. So every time we switch, it takes time to switch. And what happens is basically if we're switching between 3 to 5 things in a day, we're actually losing a really large percentage of our day to switching. And it can become so bad that you're actually spending more time switching than doing. So that is why we really want to kind of block our time and focus on one thing, try to get really into a flow state and get a lot done on it before adding something else to our plate, because we reduce context switching. So here's something else that happens. So the context switching slows us down and we actually spend less time working on our projects. Then what happens? Then we start, this whole mental game begins, right? We start beating ourselves up. I'm not making the progress I expected. I'm not getting enough done. I've got too much to do. And having too much to do creates anxiety. And oftentimes in that anxious kind of panic response, right? What are those panic responses? Flight, freeze, and fawn. So oftentimes what happens is we freeze, right? And so we spend a lot of time feeling anxious, and now we're spending even less time getting done. So first the context switching ate up our time, and now the anxious freeze is eating up our time. Does that resonate for you? I want you to just think about that for a moment. See if that resonates, right? Have you ever spent time? Have you ever thought to yourself, wow, like I'm spending a lot of time even just feeling anxious and I can't even get started? All right. So, and this happens to you and it happens to your whole team as well. And as the leader, it's really important to lead by example. So what do we do instead? And, there's this phrase you might, and it's so true, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So what we want to do is put the right amount of work on our plate. And actually, the less we put on our plate at one time, the more we'll get done. It's because we're not context switching and we're not feeling overwhelmed. So in a really short roundup, I'll tell you what we do in the impact method, which I created and I teach. And I built this method of how to really prioritize the right projects and not overload your plate into part of the impact method. So what we do is we clarify, set, update our strategic goals every 2 months in what we call a cycle renewal meeting. It's a strategic meeting with the leadership team. And then from there, we pick the goals that we're actively working on and we break down the projects that we're going to do in the next 2 months towards achieving those goals. And then we use what's called a Kanban style organizational system. So it just means we're going to put our projects into columns. So we're each project, we use a digital tool called ZenKit is the one I like, but there are other ones who do this. So, but you can do it on a board. So if it was a board, each box, each project gets a sticky note. And so we have the things that we're planning to do over the next 2 months. And we break those projects into things that can be completed within 2 weeks. And I'm going to touch back on that in just a moment. So we have the projects that we're planning to do in the next 2 months. And then from that list, we say, okay, which projects are we going to focus on first in the next 2 weeks? Which of these 2-week projects are we going to tackle first? And so we move those into the we're in progress column. And then we have this just very visual rule. I don't want any team to have more than 3 projects at once. And if you're kind of like a team of 1 or you have a very small team, except for projects that are like really teeny and require very little work, mostly I want you to have just 1 or 2 projects max. So you just watch that column and you start to call yourself out. The team starts to call out BS, right? We are not superhuman. We're not going to get 5 projects done in 2 weeks. So we call each other out, we pick those projects, we put them in progress, we work on just those projects. And here's where it gets easier to say no. Somebody comes to you with a shiny object or something they'd like you to do and say, that's great. When we come back and review our projects in 2 weeks, I'll see if I can work that in, right? If we're definitely planning to do that. Or that's a great idea. I'm going to put that on the list to consider next time we do strategic planning, which is always less than 2 months away. We're going to see if that fits for meeting our priority goals right now. So the thing that this does in helping you say no is you can say yes, right? You can say, yes, I want to consider that. Yes, we're going to consider that. Not we're going to do it, and we're not going to jump to doing it right away because we know we have our projects for the next 2 weeks laid out and we know exactly when. So you can tell somebody, yes, when we come to our next project planning meeting in the impact method, we call it a sprint renewal. They happen every 2 weeks. We'll consider it. We'll see if it fits in now or if there's a better time to do it. Or if it's more strategy related, at our next strategy session, we're going to consider it. We're going to see how it fits into the big picture. So instead of trying to tell you, you need to say no, I'm going to give you a way that you can actually say yes without these new things actually landing on your plate now and giving them the right attention in the context of the bigger picture where you need to be giving them attention about whether or not and how many resources you're going to give to these kind of projects that are coming in from the outside world to you. The other thing that I really see my clients learning when we switch to this is they start to really understand what can be done in 2 weeks by their team. And it is 100% of the time the case that new clients think they can get more done than they can. And so they actually start reducing the size of their projects. And then once they've reduced what can be done in 2 weeks to the real amount, now they're not trying to context switch. Now they're not overwhelmed. And all of a sudden you see projects moving out of in progress to the third column, which is done, very quickly. And all of a sudden we get flow of things getting done with so less on our plate at any one time and more flow from we're planning to do it into in progress and then done. And that is the magic of how doing less actually gets you more to completion. I love talking about this topic. If you're like, yeah, I want to learn that impact method system, Sarah, if you'd like to consider working with me, either in my group program, the Thrive program, or one-on-one, you can do so by going to pivotground.com/application. It's really short. Just tell me a little bit about your organization, your situation. I review it manually, and you'll have a chance to have a call, and we can go through in much more detail where you're at and what the solutions are and if they are right for you. Until next time, I wish you all